My brother gave a toast at my wedding and exposed a secret about my husband that made half the guests walk out. I thought he was just being petty until I found the hidden envelope taped under my chair. I met Chris in college. He was the charming, confident type who always knew the right thing to say. I was the quieter one, the overachiever with a small circle of friends and a detailed 5-year plan. Somehow, we balanced each other out. Within a year, we were inseparable. My family loved him, or at least they pretended to. My older brother, Nate, was the only one who kept his distance. He never outright said he disliked Chris, but there was this wall between them that never seemed to come down. Chris tried to make nice, invited Nate to watch football, helped my dad fix the back porch one summer, but Nate stayed cold. I chalked it up to sibling protectiveness. Nate had always been more of a parent than a brother after Mom passed. He'd raised me more than our dad had, really. I figured he just didn't trust easily. Still, I wish things could be different. As our wedding approached, I held out hope that it would be the event that finally brought them together. The day of the wedding was beautiful. The weather was perfect, the venue looked like something out of a fairy tale, and for the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about work or bills or anything stressful. Just walking down that aisle, seeing Chris's face light up, I thought, this is it. This is everything I've ever wanted. Everything was going smoothly until the reception. That's when Nate took the mic. He was supposed to give a short toast, nothing dramatic. He started off stiff, like always, but then his voice shifted. His hands trembled. He said something like, "There's something I've been holding in for a long time, and I can't stay quiet anymore." The room went silent. Chris froze beside me, his smile dropping completely. People started shifting in their seats. My aunt even let out a nervous laugh, like she thought it was some awkward joke. But I knew my brother too well. He wasn't the type to prank or embarrass people for fun, especially not me. Nate took a deep breath and looked directly at me. "Chris and I have known each other longer than you think," he said. "I didn't say anything when you started dating him, because I thought he'd changed. But he hasn't. He's still the same guy who lied to me, scammed our cousin out of 10 grand, and disappeared when things got tough." The room gasped. I laughed out of pure confusion. "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. But Nate wasn't finished. He went by a different name back then, Ryan. "Ask him." I turned to Chris. He looked pale, like actually gray. "It's not what you think," he said quickly. "I was young. I made mistakes." "Don't," Nate snapped. "Don't gaslight her like you did the rest of us. She deserves the truth, not whatever version of it you think she'll swallow." I stood there frozen. My mind raced. Chris had told me bits and pieces about a rough patch in his early 20s, but I thought it was just about dropping out of a job or partying too much. Not this. Not a double identity. Then Nate did something that made my stomach flip. He pointed to the chair I'd just sat down in. "There's an envelope taped under your seat. Go ahead. Look." With shaky hands, I bent down and reached under the chair. My fingers brushed against the edge of something. An envelope. I pulled it free and held it in front of me like it was ticking. It had my name on it, in Chris's handwriting. I looked at him again, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. I opened it slowly, my breath shallow, my heart hammering in my chest. Inside were 3 things: a photocopy of a police report, a grainy photo of Chris or Ryan with a woman I didn't recognize, and a bank statement with transactions that made my stomach drop. Nate stepped forward. I didn't want to do this like some kind of dramatic reveal, but you wouldn't believe me any other way. He's done this before. He charms women, wins over their families, and then drains their accounts or disappears when it starts to crumble. I blinked down at the papers. The police report was from 7 years ago. Larceny and fraud. The bank statement? The account was mine. And the withdrawal date? Just last week. $5,000. Gone. "What is this?" I asked, voice cracking. "What did you do?" Chris stepped toward me, hands out like he could explain it all away. "Please, babe, listen to me. That money, I was going to pay it back. I just needed it for something important. It's not what you think." My legs felt like jelly. I sat down hard, still holding the envelope like it might bite me. Everyone at the table was silent, not even whispering, just watching the implosion of my engagement happen like it was a movie. "I trusted you," I whispered. "I let you into my life, my home, I defended you when people said you were too good to be true. And all this time, you were stealing from me? Chris looked panicked now, scanning the room like he was looking for an exit. Nate crossed his arms and blocked the path behind him. You're not leaving, he said. Not until she decides what happens next. Chris looked at me like I was the one betraying him, like I had cornered him somehow. His face shifted between guilt, fear, and desperation, but I couldn't find a trace of the man I thought I loved. The mask had cracked. Now I saw what Nate had probably seen from the beginning. Where did the money go? I asked, my voice low but sharp. He hesitated, then said, It was an emergency. A friend needed help. Stop lying. I stood up slowly, the envelope still in my hand. You don't have friends. You have marks. That finally made him flinch. The people around us were trying not to stare, but it was impossible. I could hear forks clinking against plates and murmurs behind napkins. My parents were frozen, my mom still holding her wine glass midair. My dad looked furious and completely lost. Nate took the envelope from me gently, opened the photocopy again, and handed it to my dad. You deserve to know who is about to join our family. My dad's face turned red as he read the police report. Is this real? He asked, not looking up. Chris didn't answer. That silence was louder than any confession. I turned to Chris, suddenly calm in a terrifying way. You're going to leave this place.
Now.
You're going to disappear from my life the way you've disappeared from others. And if you ever try to contact me again, I'll make sure every single woman you've ever conned hears your name. Loudly. Publicly. His mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. Then, like a switch flipped, he nodded, grabbed his coat from the chair, and walked past me without a word. No apology.
No final, player.
Just silence. The door closed behind him. The room felt 10 degrees warmer. I looked at Nate. You knew? He nodded once. I didn't have proof until yesterday. He started acting weird around your bank account, so I got a friend of mine to help. He's a fraud investigator. I sank back into my chair. The adrenaline crash hit me like a wave. And then I started to laugh. Not a joyful laugh. A broken, overwhelmed, what the H asterisk asterisk, just happened asterisk kind of laugh. My mom rushed over to hug me. My dad poured me a full glass of wine, without saying a word. Nate just stood beside me, like a bodyguard I didn't realize I'd always had. And for the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt safe. The aftermath was quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that rang in your ears. The dinner never really recovered. My mom insisted on packing everything up. My dad called for the check without touching his meal. Nate helped me gather my things, and I could tell he was watching me closely, waiting to see when I'd break. But I didn't. Not yet. When we got home, I collapsed on the couch, still in my dress, heels kicked off somewhere by the front door. Nate followed me in, loosened his tie, and sat in the armchair across from me. You okay? He asked softly. No, I said. But I will be. We sat in silence for a moment, and then I asked the question that had been clawing at the back of my throat. How many people do you think he's done this to? Nate exhaled. At least 3 others. My friend at the bureau found similar patterns, different names, different cities, same MO. The guy's a professional. A shiver ran through me, and I almost married him. But you didn't, Nate said. You saw the truth in time. That counts. I nodded slowly, tears finally starting to fall now that the fight was over. I feel so stupid, so violated. He was in my house. He met my family. He held me while I slept. Con men are masters of performance, Nate said gently. You're not stupid. You're human. I wiped my face, then looked up at him. You saved me. Twice. He smiled, a little sadly. I'd do it 100 more times. We sat in that room together for what felt like forever. No TV, no distractions. Just the weight of what had happened and the relief that it was finally over. And even though I was shattered, something new began to take root in that silence, a fragile kind of strength. One built not on trust in others, but in myself. The next few weeks were a strange mix of recovery and redefinition. I moved out of my apartment the day after the confrontation. I couldn't stand being in a space where every corner reminded me of him, of the lies he told, the way he smiled like he meant it. I stayed with my parents for a bit, but eventually found a cozy place of my own, smaller but full of sunlight. It was the first space I had chosen entirely for myself. I went back to therapy, not because I felt broken, but because I didn't want to carry the damage forward. I needed to understand why I had ignored my instincts, why I let charm outweigh red flags, why part of me still woke up expecting to see him beside me. Nate and I stayed in touch. At first it was check-ins, casual texts, little jokes to keep the mood light. Then it was late-night conversations about everything: work, life, trauma, and weirdly, hope. He told me things I don't think he ever told anyone. I listened. I started to laugh again. One evening, we went to dinner, just the two of us, and he reached across the table, hesitating, like asking permission. When our hands met, I didn't pull away. I didn't think I could trust again. I whispered.
You don't have to yet, he said.
Just sit here with me. That's enough for now.
And it was.
That night wasn't the beginning of something romantic, not yet. But it was the beginning of something solid.
Safe. Real.
The con man was later arrested in another state. Someone else he tried to scam recognized him from a forum I had posted in. The FBI contacted me again. They built a case. I testified. He was sentenced. But that part didn't define me anymore. I started writing, not about him, but about survival. About intuition. About silence and how powerful it becomes when you learn to listen to it. One of my essays went viral. I got messages from women all over the world. I wasn't alone. And I think in some way, that's what finally healed me. Not justice, not revenge, not even love. But knowing that my pain had turned into someone else's warning. That essay opened doors I hadn't even known existed. A small publishing house reached out asking if I'd ever thought about turning my experience into a book. At first, I laughed.
Me?
A writer?
But the idea stuck with me.
So I started outlining chapters during my lunch breaks, scribbling memories on sticky notes, trying to capture not just what had happened, but how it had felt. The confusion, the numbness, the slow, creeping realization that the person I loved never really existed. Writing became a kind of exorcism. Every sentence I put down made room for something new in my life, something honest. Nate cheered me on every step of the way. He read early drafts, helped me find an agent, even offered to write a foreword if I wanted one. His presence in my life wasn't a rebound or a replacement. It was stability, a reminder that I could be seen fully, without performance or pretense. When the book finally came out, I expected maybe a few readers, women like me, who'd loved someone they shouldn't have, who'd stayed too long. But it blew up. Interviews, podcasts, TV spots. I remember sitting across from a talk show host while they held up my book and said, "You were conned, betrayed, publicly humiliated. And yet here you are. How did you do it?" I smiled, leaned into the mic, and said, "By telling the truth, out loud." Because for years, my silence had protected a liar.
But now?
My voice was protecting others. I didn't expect the letters. At first, it was just a trickle. A woman in Michigan. A girl in her 20s from London. A retired schoolteacher from Oregon. Each one had their own version of my story. Different names, different details, but the same underlying theme. Betrayal disguised as love. Many had stayed silent for decades. Some were still living it. Others, like me, had finally walked away and were searching for a way to rebuild. I started replying to every single one. It became my new morning ritual. Coffee, a quiet hour at my desk, and an inbox full of people bravely cracking open their wounds. I didn't have all the answers, but I could listen. I could say, "You're not crazy. You're not alone. And you can absolutely survive this." That's when I realized the real twist in my story. The worst thing that ever happened to me, the thing that broke me, had become the very thing that connected me to others. I wasn't just someone who'd been hurt. I was someone who'd healed out loud, and that gave others permission to do the same. So no, I never got back what I lost. But I built something new in its place. Stronger. Realer. And this time it was mine.